Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the wonderful weather that you blessed us with this year, and we thank you for this congregation that meets here and the men that lead this congregation. We ask that you continue to give the thoughts and the minds of those that are leading, those that are making sure that the congregation is following your will, that they continue to do so in a way that's pleasing to you. We thank you so much for Rick and his ability to teach this class this morning. We ask that you help him recall the things that he has studied and prepared, and present them in a way that we can take them home and remember them and apply them to our lives. We ask that you be with those that could not be with us this morning, whatever the reasons are. If it's an indifference or if it's sickness, please return them to us as quickly as possible. We thank you especially at this time, Lord, for Jesus that died on the cross for our sins, that we can have a chance to return to you with you in heaven. It's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Darren. This week we're doing lesson 22. It's chapter 24 in Matthew, and it's on page 77 in your handbooks. It's prophecies of Jesus about the destruction of Jerusalem. As Jesus finishes his pronouncements of woe against the wickedness and hypocrisy that is characteristic of the Jewish religious leadership of the day, he spoke of the judgment that will come on that generation. I want to read chapter 23, verses 29 through 36 on this. Chapter 23, verses 29 through 36. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous, and say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore you are witnesses against yourselves that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your father's guilt. Serpents, brood of vipers, how can you escape the condemnation of hell? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city. That on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of the righteous of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and altar. Assuredly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. He then laments the desolate house that Jerusalem, that representing the Jewish people, has become. He talks about that in verses 37 and 39 of the same chapter. Jesus laments over Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as the hens gather her chicks under her wings, but you are not willing. See, your house is left desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. This language indicates a coming judgment of God on the unfaithful nation. In the next chapter, Jesus explains more about this coming judgment as he sits on the Mount of Olives. Verses 1 and 2 are speaking of Jesus predicts the destruction of the temple. Verses 1 and 2. Then Jesus went out, and this is back in chapter 24. Then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, do you not see all these things? Assuredly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. When Jesus departs from the temple area, his disciples come to him wanting to show him the magnificence of the structure itself. The temple in Jerusalem was a massive, awe-inspiring complex built and expanded by Herod the great beginning around 20 BC. It was not a single building, but a series of courtyards and structures surrounding the main sanctuary or the temple proper. Herod's project transformed the original modest second temple into one of the most magnificent religious sites in the ancient world. It had a massive platform. Herod doubled the size of the Temple Mount by constructing a large walled platform. It was approximately 36 acres, if you can imagine the size of that. 36 acres for this platform. It is considered one of the largest ancient sacred precincts ever built. It had a stunning facade. The exterior of the main temple building was covered with plates of white marble and gold. The first century Jewish historian Josephus described it as looking like a snow-clad mountain that was hard to look at in the sunlight. The temple had huge stones. The construction used massive quarried stones, some weighing over 100 tons, 20,000 pounds, to create the immense retaining walls of the platform. It had a royal portico. A portico is a structure consisting of a roof supported by columns at regular intervals, typically attached as a porch to a building. Along the southern wall of the outer court was a royal stoa. The stoa is a large basilic-like hall with 162 columns featuring Corinthian capitals. It had courts for Gentiles, courts for women, courts for Israelites, and courts for priests. The temple itself was divided into three main parts. The porch, which I'm assuming is probably the royal portico, a grand entrance hall in front of the temple. The second part of the temple was the holy place. It contained the golden seven-branched menorah, the golden altar of incense, and the table for the showbread. The third section was the Holy of Holies. It was separated from the holy place by a veil. This inner sanctum was considered the dwelling place of God. The main temple structure was finished relatively quickly in about 1.5 years. Work on the courtyard and other elements of the complex continued for decades, approximately 46 years, which is a little over 4.5 decades. This is why the Gospel of John records that in the early years of Jesus' ministry, the temple was still under construction. That's in John 2, verse 20. Jesus then jolts his disciples with words of destruction. Do you not see all these things? Assuredly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. That's verse 2. Though they are magnificent structures, a time is coming when they will be destroyed completely. Any questions or thoughts about what we've covered so far? I kind of went into the thing about the temple because I was curious about it when I read it, so I looked some things up, and y'all may not have been interested in that, but it kind of interested me to see the massive size and the complexity of what it was. It's pretty amazing in my opinion.
If you think about that, 36 acres is a lot.
That's just the platform.
Yeah, I mean, that is huge.
It had courtyards that completely surrounded the main temple.
I don't know how big you think about it's not Chesapeake now, whatever the main stadium is downtown. I don't think that's 36 acres.
I don't think so either.
So, huge.
This campground property in its entirety is 40 acres.
Okay, did everybody hear that? This entire KOA campground is 40 acres. So it was 6 acres larger than this campground. Just the temple complex.
To think of not a stone piece that many, but
Yeah.
one stone piece.
All going to be torn down, destroyed.
You just think of the inside too. I mean, when we just think of 30 acres, 40 acres, and then a building, you know, you broke it down very simply and correctly, you know, the outer court, the holy place, the holy of holies. But when you think about all that went into there, because they were offering sacrifices there every day, and then can you imagine the flow of blood that was going through there at all times? At all times. I mean, we just think about the structure and what it represents to us today as Christians.
Anything else? Okay, we read verses 33 through 14 now. This is preparing for the coming destruction. Verse 3 through 14, the signs of the times and the end of the age. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. Scene now shifts to the Mount of Olives, where Jesus sits down. The disciples are speaking of are Peter, James, John, and Andrew. It gives us their names and tells us that in Mark 13:3. Come to him privately with questions. First question, tell us when these things be. Tell us when will these things be. Second question, what will be the sign of your coming? Third question, what of the end of the age? All those were in verse 3. They want to know when the destruction that Jesus speaks of will take place and what signs will alert them to its coming. These questions dealt with the time and signs accompanying the destruction to come on Jerusalem. The additional statement in Matthew, the end of the age, that's the world, has reference to the end of the Jewish age with the destruction of the temple. The disciples would not have asked about the second coming of Jesus because they did not yet understand that he was leaving them. I want to read John 16, verses 16 through 18 here. John 16, verses 16 through 18. Sorrow will turn to joy. A little while and you will not see me. And again a little while you will see me, because I go to the Father. Then some of the disciples said among themselves, What is this that he says to us? A little while and you will not see me, and again a little while you will see me, and because I go to the Father. They said, therefore, what is this that he says, a little while? We do not know what he is saying. So this shows that the disciples were not understanding yet that he was going to be leaving them, departing from them, taking his place in heaven. They were unaware of it at this time. So, in verses 3 through 12, Jesus tells his disciples of the signs they will receive before the destruction, preparing them for the persecution and false prophets they will encounter. They are not to be deceived by those who will claim to be the Christ. I'm going to read Acts 5, verses 36 and 37 here. Acts 5, verses 36 and 37. For some time ago, I got that right. Yeah, 36 and 37. For some time ago, Thaddeus rose up, claiming to be somebody. A number of men, about 400, joined him. He was slain, and all who obeyed him were scattered and came to nothing. After this man, Judas of Galilee, rose up in the days of the census and drew away many people after him. He also perished, and all who obeyed him were dispersed. In verses 13 and 14, Jesus promises his disciples that he who endures to the end will be saved, and once the gospel has been preached in all the world as witnesses to all the nations, then the end will come. Paul writes to the Colossians in the gospel that the gospel is preached to every creature under heaven. It's Colossians 1:23. This epistle was written around AD 61 to 63, only a few years before the destruction of Jerusalem. Any thoughts or questions?
This is all in reference to the fall and destruction of the temple, correct?
Yes, which in essence is the end of the Jewish altar, the Jewish sacrifices and things like that. Yes, this is all regarding the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple.
So there'd be no reference, any of this, to the second coming of Christ?
No, there's not. That's one of the, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but that is a misconception that many people are, premillennialists in particular, have come up with. So.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
She said, was any of this dealing with the second coming of Christ? Which it is not. It's dealing with the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. But premillennialists have tried to link this or connect this with the second coming. And we talk about that here in a little bit more, but it's not dealing with the second coming of Christ here at all. It's the destruction of...
In context, it's not, but could it be a dual prophecy?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Anybody got an idea on that?
I didn't hear the question.
She said, is it possible that this could be like a dual prophecy? Not just to the destruction of Jerusalem, but also to the second coming.
There appears to be some similarities, or we try to make them similarities, maybe, of the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of time. There's, there will be. But, I think he's talking specifically about the destruction of Jerusalem.
Absolutely.
It's going to affect those people. And he was talking to them about that. And certainly there's things that are going to happen at the end of time. And there may be some of these things may happen, very well happen.
Yes, Paul?
Also, you gotta look at the splitting of the veil. That's a place where the Jews could not go.
It's forbidden. Yeah.
Not only this,
Gentiles.
well, also the Holy of Holies.
Yeah.
Had a
I think no one was allowed in there, but maybe one time a year,
Yeah.
the high priest was allowed to go in there, and other than that,
They weren't allowed in there.
yeah, that's right.
So that had to be a big thing because for somebody just to see it.
Yep.
It was a good deal.
Hey, Rick,
Yes.
one of the things that the book mentions is that, you know, this destruction of Jerusalem, the coming judgment on Israel is a type and is a foreshadowing of his final judgment coming to all nations. So it is kind of a type or foreshadowing of the end.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Could I get somebody to read verses 15 through 35? Verses 15 through 35 of Matthew 24.
Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to get his things out of that. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to get the things that are in the house. And let him who is in the field not turn back to get his cloak. But woe to those who are with child, and to those who nurse babes in those days. But pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath, for then there will be a great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall. Unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days shall be cut short. And if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him. For false Christ and false prophets will arise and will show great signs and wonders, so as to be misled, if possible, so as to mislead even if possible the elect. Behold, I have told you in advance. If therefore they say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go forth. Or behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe them. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes even to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures shall gather. How far?
Just through 35.
35. But immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send forth his angels with a great trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. Now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. Even so, you too, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near, right at the door. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away.
Thank you. This is a sign of the time of destruction. Jesus begins to explain the signs that will signal the time of Jerusalem's destruction. He refers back to the prophecy by Daniel about the abomination of desolation. He does that in verse 15. I want to read Daniel 9, 26 and 27. Daniel 9, verses 26 and 27. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end of it shall be a flood, and until the end of the war, desolations are determined. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wings of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consumption which is determined is poured out on the desolate. The abomination of desolation is coupled with the end of daily sacrifices and offerings, which will be the cessation of temple worship. In Daniel's prophecy of the 70 weeks, this time comes after the cutting off or the death of the Messiah and during the destruction of the city and the sanctuary. When this is seen, those who are in Judea are to flee into the mountains quickly without stopping to get anything. I want to read Luke 21, verses 20 and 21. Luke 21, verses 20 and 21. The destruction of Jerusalem. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart, and let not those who are in the city, in the country, enter her. This helps us identify the abomination of desolations when the Gentile Roman armies in Judea surround the city of Jerusalem. This is a sign to begin one's fast escape from the area. Woe will be to those who are pregnant or had nursing babies, or if the flight was in the winter, the rainy season, or on the Sabbath. Jesus identifies those days as a great tribulation, having never been seen before or since. And that's in verse 21. Jesus again warns them not to believe any deceivers who will be trying to take advantage of the troubled times. This judgment of Christ will be as quick and obvious as a bolt of lightning, and it is described as eagles gathering over a carcass. I want to read Jeremiah 19 and 7 here. Jeremiah 19:7, and I will make void the counsel of Judah and Jerusalem in this place, and I will cause them to fall by the sword before their enemies, and by the hands of those who seek their lives. Their corpses I will give as meat for the birds of heaven and for the beasts of the earth. Also, I want to read Hosea 8:1. Hosea chapter 8, verse 1. The apostasy of Israel. Set the trumpet to your mouth. He shall come like an angel against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and rebelled against my law. And finally, I want to read Revelations chapter 19, verses 17, 18, and 21. Revelation 19, verses 17 and 18 and 21. Verse 17, the beast and his armies defeated. Then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather together for the supper of the great God, that you may eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses and of those who sit on them, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, both small and great. Verse 21, and the rest were killed with the sword, which proceeded from the mouth of him who sat on the horse, and all the birds were filled with their flesh. These verses show us what was prophesied about the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Jesus describes the situation immediately after the tribulation as a darkened sun and moon, the stars falling from heaven. This language is taken from the description of Babylon's fall in Isaiah 13:10. Let's read that. Isaiah 13:10. For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be darkened in its going forth, and the moon will not cause the light to shine. And then in Ezekiel 32:7. Ezekiel 32:7. When I put out your light, I will cover the heavens and make its stars dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. Isaiah 13 is speaking in reference to Babylon, and Ezekiel 32:7 is talking about the destruction of Egypt. Apocalyptic symbolism of the fall of the leading lights, the rulers of the Jews will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That's in verse 30 of chapter 24, Matthew 24. And he will send his angels to gather the elect. Coming on the clouds is a common symbol of God's presence. Here we see Christ in glorious victory over those who oppose truth and righteousness. Jesus will warn those who seek his life that this is what they eventually will see. I want to read Matthew 26, verse 64 here. Matthew 26, verse 64. Jesus said to them, "It is as you said. Nevertheless, I say to you hereafter, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Jesus tells a parable of a fig tree giving signs, that's the branch becoming tender and puts forth leaves, as to when summer is near. So also, when they see the signs, these things, verse 34, they can know assuredly that the time that they had asked about is near. Jesus places the time of these events in this generation. That's verse 34, and then in chapter 23, verse 36. 23:36 reads, "Assuredly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation." Declares that his words will not pass away. The use of this generation in verse 34 limits the time of every event described by Jesus prior to verse 34 as being fulfilled in the first century destruction of Jerusalem. To apply the fulfillment of these things to any other generation is a misuse of the clear language of this passage. The appeal to the context of verses 4 through 33 by premillennial doctrine for a future tribulation preceding the second coming of Christ is false. That's what you spoke of earlier. Any questions or thoughts about these verses?
I'm going to say something about why I think it's actually Jerusalem. They told him to flee. At the end of time, you can't flee. There's no fleeing to do that. It's going to happen. So that's my theory about why I think it can't be.
I think it's a proper theory. I mean, when the judgment day comes, that's it, it's over.
It doesn't matter where you pray.
Those that have done what he wants are going to go to heaven, and those that don't are going to go to hell. And that's going to be the end of the world as we know it. And I think you're exactly right. This is not the end of time yet. This is the end of Israel, or Jerusalem, and the end of the temple and the sacrifices and offerings that were done by the Jews in those days. It's putting an end to all that, but it's not the end of time yet.
Well, that's another thing too, because when they came into Jerusalem once, and then they backed off. The guy retired or something, and that gave them time to realize that what God said, life and stuff that Jesus said, that they did to Jewish people did.
There's really three things that make you think that, well, that teach that it's the destruction of the temple, and that what Carol said, the fleeing, the signs, these are the signs for you to flee. At the end of time, only God knows the hour and time that's going to happen. Not even the Son knows that.
We're gonna go in that here in just these next verses.
Yeah.
We're gonna cover that.
Right.
All right, I want to read verses 36 through 44. No one knows the day or hour, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then 2 men will be in a field, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known what hour the thief would come, he would have watched and not allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. Being watchful for that day and hour. In this next section, Jesus' discourse takes a significant turn from those days with their signs and specific time period to a particular day and hour which will have no sign or time revealed. Though some believe that Jesus is continuing his discussion of the destruction of Jerusalem, the context is a significant change in subject here. First, the destruction of Jerusalem had a time period. Those days, verse 19, 22, and 29 tell us that. And clear signs to anticipate its arrival. The coming in verse 36 has a different time point, that day and hour, and no signs to know that time will come. Disciples are told to be running for the mountains and from their fields and houses when the destruction of Jerusalem comes. That's in verses 16 and 18. But at the hour of the second coming, they will be living and working normally in the fields and mills. Verse 37 through 42 tell us that. Thirdly, the term day and hour are used in another context by Jesus to refer to second coming. though the disciples did not ask about the second coming, this would not preclude Jesus from including it in his discourse, for his coming in the judgment of Israel was a type and foreshadowed his final coming in judgment on all nations. And on that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Verse 36 tells us that day and hour has reference to the final judgment day, and Jesus parallels the time of the second coming with the days of Noah, when they were carrying on life normally until the day Noah entered the ark. There was no warning or sign of the particular day when the flood would come. When Jesus comes in the last day, 2 men will be in the field and 2 women in the mill. One will be taken and one will be left in each instance. 1 man will be taken and 1 man left. In the mill, 1 woman will be taken and 1 woman. That is representative of the people that are ready for the coming and the people who are not. The ones who are ready will be taken. Those that are not will be left behind. That's what that's trying to tell us.
Unfortunately, everybody wants to be like the thief on the cross. And you're not going to have that chance.
That's right. That's right. Those who will be ready for that unknown day and hour will be living normally, as will those who will not be ready. Jesus admonishes his disciples to watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. Verse 42. Note again that in the former section, they will know when the Lord was coming. Verse 33. But in this section, they do not know. Though the time comes like a thief unannounced. I want to read Peter's 2. I want to read 2 Peter 3 verses 10. Verse 10. 2 Peter 3 verse 10. The day of the Lord. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. And then also 1 Thessalonians 5:2. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. At the hour in which one does not expect, that he will come unannounced, in an hour which no one expects. Any thoughts or questions about these verses? Okay, read verses 45 through 51. Chapter 24, verses 45 through 51. The faithful servant and the evil servant. When then is a faithful and wise servant? Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household, to give them food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he comes, will find so doing. Assuredly I say to you, that he will make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he is not looking for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and will cut him in two and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The faithful and evil servant. Jesus then asked, Who then is the faithful and wise servant in verse 45? With this question, Jesus emphasizes the need to be faithfully attending to our duties as servants of Christ. When the master comes, the faithful servant will be blessed and rewarded. If an evil servant believes that the Lord is delaying his coming, he will not be ready when the master does return at an unannounced time. That servant will be punished severely. We must be ready for the Lord's eventual return, even though we do not know when it will be. Any thoughts or questions? That is all I have for the lesson today. Thank you for your time and attention.